Thank you very much. Thank you, Colleen. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody who's attending here. So this is a remarkable occasion for me. I reflect on how to enjoy birds. And there are many, many different ways in which we enjoy birds. We just go birding, we go life listing, we go atlasing. Atlasing is a big source of enjoyment of birds for many people. There are people who paint birds and do photography. Is it a painting or a photograph? That's a painting by one of my master students, Tanya Scott. I think it's a remarkable talent amongst a whole lot of other attributes that she's got. Another set of additional ways of enjoying birds. You can eat them, and that's breakfast this morning. But ultimately, I suppose what is the most enjoyable thing about birds for me is actually analyzing the data that gets generated. So that's a piece of GenStat code. So I thought I would do something fairly idiosyncratic, fairly autobiographical, a little bit indulgent today. So that's the front cover of my, or the title page of my PhD thesis, 1973. I think that's 44 years ago. And all I can say about that thesis is that I solved a problem that nobody's ever had. There's a page from the thesis, and I carefully do not let my students see my thesis until they're so far in that they cannot back out, because there's absolutely nothing about my PhD thesis which qualifies me to supervise theirs. There's a histogram. It's a remarkable histogram. It's what a first-year statistics student learns as bimodal. It has two peaks. It represents the breeding success of the Brent goose, a species that breeds in the Taimyr Peninsula, which is directly north of India. And it's the same area where our waders that come to South Africa breed, curlew sandpipers, ruddy turnstones, and species like that. And you'll see that there's, in the 30-year period, which this data represents, there was never a year in which the breeding success lay between 15% and 20%. Breeding either failed or it was very successful to varying degrees. And this was measured in Britain because the first-year birds, first-year Brent geese come and they're easily recognizable. And so for a long period of time, there was data collected on first-year success of breeding of Brent geese. When my friend Ron Summers set this out year by year, it turned out that there were never more than 2 years of good breeding or more than 2 years of bad breeding. And so my job was to demonstrate that this came in remarkable, almost exactly 3-year cycles. And that's a graphic out of a paper we produced. So this had been dismissed by researchers as due to weather. Either good breeding success or bad breeding success was due to weather. But my colleague Ron Summers, he had this bright idea that these fluctuations were due to lemming cycles. So we went to the tundra. This was a remarkable expedition. We flew in this big Russian helicopter. I've actually been twice. It was like flying from Cape Town to Port Elizabeth by helicopter. The far north of Russia, the Taimyr Peninsula, is a nature reserve, this Russian nature reserve. On the other two sides of that post, the wording is in Cyrillic Russian characters. The drum there is a drum full of helicopter fuel. In case the helicopter runs out of fuel, they know that they can come to this spot and collect it. I lived in that tent for a few weeks. A month or so. I was the only person in that expedition who was actually warm. When we got there, that river, the Piacina River, was completely frozen over. That's what the breeding grounds of curlew sandpipers and Brent geese and other species looks like as you come into land. The thaw there is quite far advanced. There's my colleague Ron Summers inspecting the nest of a snowy owl, and the waders are just remarkable. There were very few waders that were new to me. Most of them were species that were well known to me from Langebaan Lagoon. But to see grey plovers and species like that in their breeding plumage on their nests is actually quite amazing. And it was a really remarkable experience for me. There's a Brent goose getting onto its nest. Once they are on their nest and they blend in with the tundra, they are extremely hard to spot. There's the villain of the piece, the species that links the breeding success of the Brent geese and the waders to the lemming cycles. So when the lemmings have these big plagues, the foxes eat lemmings. Complicated story, but the following year there are no lemmings, there are still foxes, and the birds systematically find every nest so that the breeding success is very low. Then there's an unpredictable year, and then there's a lemming plague year again. So this is a lemming coming out of its burrow. They're very, very poorly adapted animals for hiding away, and they really are very easily preyed on by the foxes. So this is the big result of that analysis. In the years, look at Model 1, when there were lots of lemmings, the breeding success was good. In the years when there were no lemmings, the breeding success was small, and the p-value represents the probability of those results occurring just by chance, and those are vanishingly small probabilities. So I went to the tundra in 1991. I went back again in 2001. And that really was the end of these regular, predictable lemming cycles. Climate change has struck, and the part of the planet which has been most impacted by climate change has been the far north. And so the character of the tundra is changing, and the lemming cycles are not as predictable as they used to be. And so it's a remarkable thing that the lemming cycles in Siberia are visible to birdringers at least as far south as Langebaan Lagoon. In the years when there's no breeding success, there are no young birds coming south to migrate. And this is what the bird atlas shows. Red is dramatic changes dramatic decreases in the abundance of curlew sandpipers between the first bird atlas and the second bird atlas. This is in fact the fourth gold medal that I have received, and you have to indulge me as I go through them, and I will reveal at the end why I'm actually doing this. So this is the first bird atlas, the covers 1997. And this generated the first gold medal I received from the Royal Society of South Africa for our contribution to science through the publication of these books. Another big thing in my life was the Treasure oil spill in 2000, and the Apollo C oil spill that preceded it in 1994. And this was an amazing event, and it resulted in me taking on Phil Whittington as a PhD student. I was in the Department of Statistics. I had to really fight to get somebody who was not a statistician registered in the department, but Phil was the person who did the follow-up, first follow-up of the penguins that had been oiled and released. So it was a very, very emotional event, this. And the reality is that penguin numbers have decreased so much that we could never actually have a spill of this order of magnitude anymore. We could never get such a large number of penguins oiled. We could get, in fact, devastating impacts of oiling now, with there's just handfuls of penguins left in the country. So there's Phil in the yellow top. He was my PhD student at the time, and the Treasure oil spill delayed his graduation by at least a year in terms of his involvement in the sort of practical, hands-on analysis. So these are my penguin PhDs over the years. Phil, basically, Sandcob, bless them, when they release their penguins, they feel nothing more for them. They're gone, they've done their job. But the question remains is, do they survive and do they breed? And Phil Whittington showed that a de-oiled penguin, the amazing result that they survive as well as a never-oiled penguin. Two students down, Anton Wolfart, he showed that a de-oiled penguin was not quite as good as new, and that the breeding success of those de-oiled birds was not as good as penguins that had never been oiled. But the value of a de-oiled penguin was far greater than just letting them die, which was a recommendation which actually came out of Europe and North America, that there was no value in rehabilitating seabirds. The best thing to do to them was to euthanize them. And so these papers actually demonstrated that that concept that came from North America and Europe was actually not correct. And so out of these papers and theses and other papers that we wrote, I was awarded, as Colleen said, the Gilchrist Gold Medal, SANCOR, the Oceanographic Research Group for South Africa. And then 2011, I put in this proposal for building an early warning system for biodiversity in South Africa, and it was built largely around citizen science. The second bird atlas had started at that point in time, and this proposal was selected for funding, and along with it came a third gold medal, the Harry Oppenheimer Memorial Fellowship, a fellowship which is supposed to be the most prestigious fellowship in science in Africa. So building an early warning system is essentially the theme of my presentation here at 7 this evening.